Hey everyone, today I want to take a look at the 4th edition preview book, Wizards Presents Races and Classes. This book came out in December of 2007. It was a preview of what would be 4th edition. That would not be released until the middle of 2008. The book does not contain any rules or mechanics or powers or anything like that. It's actually more of a behind-the-scenes peek about how they were putting the game together and some of their design principles and the decisions that they had to make along the way. And I think it's just an absolute wonderful time capsule of that process. And you can really see some of the thought that went into 4th edition. And I think it's just a great book to have to really see that historical view of this particular release. So I want to take a look at a few things inside the book. The first thing that jumps out at me is this artwork on this page here. A lot of this artwork later ended up in the player's handbook to represent the different classes and races. So it's really nice to think back as somebody who would have been a fan of D&D and knew that they were coming out with 4th edition. And this book is released and it's kind of your first view into what 4th edition is going to be. And you start seeing some of this artwork, and it's such a change from what you've seen in 3rd edition, and you really get that preview, and it's just really exciting to me even looking back on it. I wasn't into D&D at the time that this was released, but I can just imagine myself back then seeing this and being like, wow, that's going to be amazing, because this artwork is just incredible. And then looking at the table of contents, what you get is the first section of the book is really talking about that design process and the things that they were trying to accomplish with 4th edition. And then you get into the races and some of the decisions they were making about races, and are the same thing for the different classes. And then you get the tiers of adventure, which is something that they developed for 4th edition as well. And there's a small little section at the end talking about D&D Insider. So I'm just going to kind of browse through the book to see a couple of those sections and give a feel for what's in there. So these first few pages are talking about their design principles. And I love that this is a lot of different people talking about their experiences during this process and some of the decisions they were trying to make and what they wanted to accomplish. In this section here is a nice timeline showing what was happening and who was involved and what their mission was and what their outcome was from that. So all the way from pre-design all the way through the playtest in June of 2007. So a nice, for those interested in the history of D&D, it's a really nice view of how things progressed in the development of the game. Then we get into a couple other areas talking about redesigning D&D and taking it and making it something revolutionary, not just making an iterative change to 3rd edition, but rather really reinventing it into something even more incredible. And they have some design principles that they established here. And then there's information about the new logo and then some more of their design principles. I love that there's some emails included in here where you can see some of the communication that was going on at the time. And from that, you can kind of get a feel for how passionate everyone was about 4th edition and about what they were doing and wanting to make sure that it was right, that they were doing the right things and making the right decisions and making something better than what they had. And you can just really see that in a lot of this information in this book. And then we start getting into some of the information about the different races, and you get a lot of detail from the different people involved with what their thought processes were about the different races and what those different races could do and what their main abilities were going to be. I like these little sidebars where you get a little more personal take on it. Most of these are written as small articles by different people that were involved in the design process. So this is not just a book written by someone who's observing. This is written by the people who were really involved in it and explaining why they did the things they did. And you get our look at our Dragonborn here, and there's some information about the Dragonborns and why we have them and what we're going to do with them. So really great stuff. I'm going to kind of page forward in some groups here because it's a lot of similar stuff for each of the different races. And then once we get through the races, then there's the same information for classes. I mean, it's all great information. And I love the notion of seeing all these different design decisions that were made for all these races and classes. Just really, really interesting. I think that the main thing is it just shows you how much thought they were putting into all this and all the detail that was going into it. And then skipping ahead, I'll go, right towards the end here. The D&D Insider section, they just have a note that, they had Dungeon Magazine and Dragon Magazine at the time. And this was kind of now the third thing that they were wanting to put together, this online system for managing Dungeons and Dragons stuff and providing information. And so they had some big thoughts with it. I know there's some bad reviews about D&D Insider, probably more because 4th edition didn't take off the way they wanted to, so they never really got the opportunity to develop D&D Insider the way that it should have been. But even here you can tell that they had some big ideas for what it was going to be. And then right at the end we get, even more artwork, a preview of what's to come, and then there's the other book that we'll take a look at. So as I look at this book, the thing that keeps hitting me is it just shows the passion that they had. They were really thinking this through and wanting to make something revolutionary. And it just is a little sad to look through it and realize that it never took off the way that it really should have. I think the game system is really wonderful. I wish that it had taken off. I wish that it was more popular and they had stuck with it longer, but it wasn't meant to be. But you can see that it wasn't for lack of trying. This book really shows how they were really putting their heart and soul into it and trying to make something special. And it just didn't work out that way. You can get this book, PDF of this book on DM's Guild. You might even be able to get a print-on-demand copy. I'm not sure, but you can certainly get a PDF on DM's Guild. I'll put the link down in the description so you can have it if you're interested in it. But it's a really nice historical view of the design process that went into 4th edition. Let me know your thoughts. Until next time, take care.